Hello and welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren and today I'm watching Zay Frank. I'm looking forward to this. I always like his videos, even though it doesn't seem that anybody else really does. But I want to know how camels conquered the desert, so I'm going to watch it anyway. I'm looking forward to this. I love the animal videos, y'all. I really do. I have fun with them. So let us find out how camels conquered the desert.
This episode sponsored by Imprint.
Imprint. Thanks, Imprint. It's not for children. What does it say?
This episode sponsored by Imprint.
Oh, True Facts is not appropriate for children nor adults who don't act like children. Fair. I am both of those things. Not those things. One of them is correct.
You know when you're driving and you're really low on gas, and that little meter thing is almost at zero, and for a moment you're like, how much farther do you think we could go? Well, that right there is essentially the origin story of the dromedary camel, except not with gas, but with water. Because when their ancestors first reached a desert, one of them, Jake, started heading right into it.
Did he, then he started smoking, like, shortly thereafter? Is that where we're going with this? Is this Jake the camel's origin story? The smoke? Wasn't he the mascot? Wasn't his name Jake? Am I crazy? Maybe. I mean, yeah, obviously I am. But, like, I mean, about this specifically. That is kind of fun, though. Yep. That's like, I think I could stretch it just a little bit further. And then you go down a hill and you're like, oh, look, it's not in the red anymore. And then you go up the hill and it's like, oh, I have zero gas. It's been a while since I've driven a car.
Now, the others were like, there's no water out there. You can't cross that. But Jake said, not with that attitude, you can't. And he just kept on walking. So he died, pretty quick actually, but he inspired a whole bunch more, and they also died. Mainly dehydration, there's no water out there. But there were some others with a lot of patience and a lot less bravado that eventually evolved some incredible adaptations that allowed them to
waited.
do what Jake.
It's like, well, Jake had this idea. I think I'm going to wait a few million years to evolve the capability of doing it.
As his soul had only dreamed of. Now there was quite a bit to get sorted. If you want to walk a desert, you need the right shoes. The ancestors of camels had hooves like this mouse deer, and that won't do in the sand.
Ow.
It's like stilettos on a beach, Jerry.
Stilettos on a beach.
Wearing stilettos on a beach. Gotta listen. Anyway, over time, those hooves lost their hoovedness and transformed into something more suitable. Being an even-toed ungulate, each camel is equipped with 8 camel toes, 2 on each foot. Therefore, in a game of rocks, paper, scissors, the camel always throws scissors. Each pair of camel toes rests upon a pad of fatty tissue, which forms a broad, fleshy sort of dinner plate.
Gross.
That right there will sit right on top of the sand. I mean, it is still sand, so there's soft patches here and there, and you need to make adjustments. And that accounts for their funky ass hindquarters. I mean,
they do all kind of flat asses, don't they?
Look at it, you can tell something's off. Looks like they glued a chicken leg on a moose testicle.
A little bit, yeah.
Because on
chicken leg. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Chicken leg on a moose testicle. I like it. It is, yeah. It is kind of, they are kind of like wonky. Huh. Never really thought about that. I do remember being a child and we would play camel rides. Or it's like where my dad would like get on the ground and you'd get on his back and he'd stand up, you know, feet like hindquarters first and then like, and then front and then like walk like this. And it was fun. That was a good game. That was a fun one. I have ridden camels, real camels before too. And but then I recently learned about how terrible it is for like elephants in captivity and like the elephants that like are at circuses. Well, I knew it was bad at circuses, but I didn't realize like for elephant rides and stuff, that was really terrible for them too. So now I'm really worried that the camels that I rode was terrible for the camels too. So now I'm concerned about that.
Like the horse, skin and connective tissue connect the leg parts to the body right above the knee, which is here. On the camel, not so much.
It's all the way up in the hip.
Like a wedgie of the hip. But this arrangement means that they have more lateral flexibility to help with balance on soft or uneven ground. You'll also notice that they don't have a lot of, well, they're not thick back there. And that's because they don't need a ton of muscle. I mean, crossing the desert's not a sprint, it's it's not a marathon either. It's more like your grandpapa crossing Central Park. Ooh, look, a bench. You want to make it out there, you got to slow the down, and that means a lot of sitting. I mean, camels treat sitting like it's a contact sport. I mean, I guess it is. But my point is they're wearing the pads for it. Bridget can show you, but just fair warning, she got into some camel nip. Look, you got the knee pads, ankle pads, the toe joint pad,
There's
and
even like a chest pad,
and with those high hips, they can sit right on top those pads like a bunch of well-placed tivas, keeping all your sensitive bits off the hot sand.
Cool.
And of course, they have that hump.
That is really cool, actually. I had not considered that, but watching it go down like that, you saw its dick. And then just the chest pad. I didn't know that it had one of those.
Sure, it might protect you from a falling monkey, but that's less common than you'd think. Some people think that they're filled with water. Ridiculous.
It's fat,
it's
right?
Air. That's why you don't wear anything sharp when you're riding them. You puncture the hump and camel just goes skipping across the dunes. Jerry, I know this isn't...
What? I thought it was fat. I'm pretty sure it is fat. I think he's about to, like, fix that. I like the idea, though, of the... of you... like a deflating balloon. That is kind of funny.
True. Well, I know they stopped fact-checking, but just what do the science hippies say? Oh, it's fat? Well, that's lame. Apparently, these humps are filled with fat. Now, fat is an excellent way to store energy, but it's also a very good insulator. Works wonders, for example, for seals that live in cold water. But if a camel stored fat throughout its body, it would overheat in the hot sun. So instead, they put it all in a backpack or two, depending on the species, and you don't have that problem.
Okay.
So when a camel has good energy reserves, that hump is nice and firm, like Grandpapa's
tummy. They are so weird. Like, that's bonkers looking. Like, the back and forth, like, truly a bizarre animal, huh? That is, especially looking at them from this angle, those do not look like they belong on this planet, like, at all. They look like little teeth. They look like moving teeth.
But if it doesn't eat for a while, that hump starts getting a little floppy, like Grandpapa's... No, never mind.
Yep, stop with Grandpapa.
Those humps up can be a challenge. There's not a ton to eat in the desert for a vegetarian, and the few plants that do manage to grow look all pissed off with the spikes and the thorns and the negative vibes.
They do have negative vibes.
The camel's mouth parts had to evolve for battle. Their lips became leathery and flexible. The bottom one can get a bit droopy, but that's because it acts almost like a finger that works with the top lip. Lips, really. Because the top lip splits into two parts near the front to help with grippage. And that's important because they don't have front teeth up top. So essentially, with a 3-lip finger combo and an underbite, they can do some delicate work to get around those thorns.
Dang.
And to bring the food into the mouth hole, which for the plants is like the gates of heaven. Just look at it. Camel's like, here's some f***ing spikes, you thorny bastard. Because their mouth is lined with these long...
That's so nasty. That's so gross. Oh my God, they really aren't. They really do feel not native to the planet. Oh my goodness.
Rubbery cone-shaped papillae. Now these papillae add a layer of protection for the cheeks. But because they're pointed backwards, they also help transport the food in the direction of the exit butt.
No wonder you don't want to get bit by a camel.
But first, they have to grind the food up a bit. Jenny, punctuation. The roof of the mouth and the tongue are covered in leathery pad. Everything's a leathery pad. Their mouth is like bondage porn.
Leathery pads, leathery pads.
In the back that are kept sharp by a side-to-side chewing motion. They look a bit like half-eaten caramels, but between them and the leathery pads, they make sure that all the spikies are ground up before they hit the tum-tums, where it all gets fermented to make hump-worthy fatty acids. Listen, I wouldn't mind having a hump like a camel do, but instead of fat, I'd want it filled with cash. And that's why I'm perusing a course in essential concepts in wealth building on the Imprint app. There's a reason that Imprint was Google's App of the Year and was named Essential Education App by Apple. It's because Imprint is a way to turn your look at your phone every 10 seconds and get sucked into a mindless wormhole and come back out into a life all anxious habit, into a bite-sized everyday...
Stop calling me out!
That you can
spying on me.
There's a huge variety of courses and quick reads on topics like productivity, psychology, science, tech, history. It doesn't stop. This is interactive, bite-sized learning with clear text and visuals that you can understand. And it's all been designed using the science of learning. Major concepts are repeated, and you can take daily quizzes to make sure that what you've learned sticks in that brain hump of yours. Whether you want a quick read on AI or a multi-month course on the science of happiness,
in my brain hump.
I mean, who doesn't want more happiness? Then you should try Imprint. Go to the link imprintapp.com/Zayfrank to get a 7-day free trial and 20% off an annual membership. I bet you're going to like it. Use that link and support this show. Try Imprint today. Where were we? Oh, right. So we know where they store the food, but what about all the water? I mean, there's not that many places left on these skinny bastards. I know where it goes in, and they can drink a lot of it. 100 liters in 10 minutes if they want to.
Whoa!
A third of their body weight. We would die dead if we drank just 5% of
That's
our body
crazy.
weight. And that's because that water gets absorbed into the blood, and our salty little red blood cells would start pulling in that water, causing them to swell up and then burst. And you don't want that. But camel blood cells are built different. First off, they're oblong. Oblong. And unlike our cells, they can expand by 240% and still maintain their shape.
Okay. So hypotonic, hypertonic. Okay, this is something that I have been trying to understand since I was like 14, and it's one of those things that, like, I remember one time when I was in 9th grade biology, the teacher was explaining the difference between hypertonic and hypotonic, and I had a question, and I didn't understand what he was talking about. So so I had raised my hand, but unfortunately for me, he had just asked the question, who can explain what I just did in a different way? And he called on me. So I explained it in a different way. And he was like, absolutely, that's correct. And I was like, I have no idea what I just said, because I don't get it. But apparently my mouth knew. My brain doesn't know. My mouth understands.
So by storing water throughout their body, the camel can go 10 to 14 days without drinking anything. But of course, during that time, it's using that water and becoming dehydrated. Now, once again, this would be a challenge for our blood. When they start losing water, our red blood cells change shape. They sort of flatten out and get googey. And this makes it harder for them to flow, and then we die dead. And again, the camel blood cells can lose up to 40% of their water content and still maintain their shape. But maybe the real trick to going so long without drinking is not letting the water you have escape. And camels are like those peoples in the Doom movie, you know, the drug addicts that drink their own pee and aren't allowed to cry. Don't waste a drop. I mean, look at a camel's nose, it doesn't look that special. I mean, it can close all the way, that's something, but inside it's a water conservation machine. If you take a cross-section of their nasal cavity, you can see these sort of bloody cinnamon rolls. Those are coiled mucous membranes.
They kind of do look like fruit roll-ups, huh?
Surface area. And on that surface area, there's a heat exchange with the air. When they breathe in hot air, it comes into this upper portion here and passes over membranes that are moist. Some of that moisture evaporates and is pulled back into the lungs. When they exhale, the cooler, moist air passes through this lower area where water condenses onto the membranes and is reabsorbed. It's like a little nasal air conditioning unit. Another way to lose water is sweating. To keep our body temperature stable when it gets hot, we leak out a bit of liquid, and when that evaporates, it pulls heat away from our body. But camels can allow their internal body temperature to rise all the way up.
So I've never really understood before now exactly why sweating works, but that does make sense, which is why you don't feel like you get any cooler if you're sweating and it's humid out, because it's not evaporating. It's just staying there on your skin. I've learned something about my biology today.
To 106 degrees, which means they don't have to sweat as much. If we had a sustained fever like that, our brains would cook.
They would melt.
We'd be died dead.
We would be died
Camels
dead.
have a cool trick that goes back to that air-conditioned nose of theirs. The cooling mechanisms of their nasal cavity also cool off veins that run through those tissues. And that cooler blood would go back through the body and towards the heart. But when its internal temperature is very high, a section of vein constricts, and that redirects the cooler blood into this. The veins tangle up with a bunch of arteries and cool down the blood that's flowing through them. And guess where the blood in those arteries is going? To the noggin. Come on, they got a brain cooling system. It's amazing.
So cool.
Now, another place that you lose liquid is down by your nethers. And that's because our kidneys filter out a whole bunch of waste products from our blood. Water is used to dilute those concentrated waste products so that they can't damage our tissues or form crystals, like kidney stones. Some of you just shuddered. Camel kidneys are much more efficient than ours and lose less water in the process.
Basically, what I'm hearing is that camels are just like so much more efficient than we are in literally everything. All of their cells are better than our cells. All of their organs are better than our organs. We should learn from camels and evolve different.
Dehydrated camel urine can get quite syrupy, and that'll dribble down a leg. But peeing on yourself has benefits. As it evaporates, it cools you down. See, they don't waste a drop. Now, between the efficient kidneys and those elastic red blood cells, a camel can tolerate nearly twice the amount of salt content in their body as we can. And that allows them to do this. You know what they're doing? They're drinking seawater.
Great.
You try it. Well, don't try that.
Don't try it.
Because you'll die super dead. And of course, camel turds are hard as rocks. You can play all
Of
sorts
course.
of games.
Of course, camel turds are hard as rocks. Of course they are. They do look like little walnuts or something.
With them, like, throw the turds at Steve? Or like a fetish version of Princess and the Pea? Listen, you'd be surprised by how many people felt like this was a good photography subject. I mean, I guess they're sort of like stop and smell the roses people.
I guess.
Stop and take pictures of camel shit.
I mean, if they're hard as rocks, could you use them to make a house? Camel shit house?
Bub, Martha, quick, over here.
Oh my God, that is a lot.
Anyway, one last way that camels
That's a
conserve
lot of poop.
water is by doing this. I'm just kidding. The males do this to attract females. It's like an inflated part of their soft palate. And listen, I'm not one to judge the camel's looks, but if the females think that this makes the males more attractive, well, I guess you start wondering what it is they're looking for. No, I know he can be a dick, but it looked like he'd thrown up a whole cow liver. It was so hot. It was like a balloon made out of a placenta. Yeah, I pump that. Oblong.
Do you feel it coming?
Oblong. Thank you to Dr. Bernard, I don't know, Faye, who answered so many of our questions and helped us find images. His feedback was invaluable. Thanks to Dr. Ursula Windberger for her guidance, wonderful research and feedback. And as always, thank you for everybody on Open Access. Yes, agreed.
Feel it coming?
All right, great. Look, thank you for all of these people.
Do you feel it coming? Sad season.
Hi. There's his research.
Feel it coming?
Thanks, patrons.
Do you
Okay,
feel it
cool. Thank you so much for watching. I learned stuff about human biology. I learned stuff about camels. That was cool, guys. I enjoyed that so much. Okay, camels are fun. Camels are fun. I enjoyed that. Thank you. And then let me know if I have contributed to like the torture of camels by riding one a few times in my life at various zoos and like petting zoos and things. I hope not. I hope that it's better for the camels than for the elephants, because I did discover it's really, really terrible for the elephants, and that's incredibly distressing, and I don't want that to have happened. This video didn't ruin my day. So, like, you can ruin my day in the comments by telling me if it's bad. Anyway. Enough about that. Thanks so much for watching, and let me know what I should look at next. And don't forget to check out some of our other content that's around.